Hello everyone, and welcome to another video on this channel. I hope that this video finds you in good health, in good spirits, that your new year is off to a great start. But more importantly, that you really are in good health, that you're feeling good inside and out, in all definitions of health, right? The most obvious being physical health, but in any definition, in any form, in any shape that you perceive health. Health is obviously a very important thing. I've touched on it here and there on some of my other videos. But I thought, given that it's January, and usually that is the time that a lot of us, including myself, experience, various forms of illnesses from, the cold and the flu to, unfortunately, things more serious than that. I thought it would be worthwhile to just maybe create a video on this subject because I know many of us are, either have been experiencing this, are currently experiencing this, or unfortunately might have to experience this in the coming days and weeks. And of course, every year after that. Um, Health is such an interesting thing, right? When we have it, we don't really appreciate it or notice it that much. But the minute we feel sick or the minute we feel like something is off, the minute we experience symptoms, the minute we can't carry out our day as we would have liked, that is when the perspective starts to change. That is when we really appreciate that, above everything, health is the most important. Doesn't matter how much money you're making. Doesn't matter where you are. Doesn't even matter who you're with in some cases. All that matters is getting better and recovering and taking care of yourself, because you literally have, viruses or bacteria or anything like that attacking you from the inside out. So of course, physically, it's a very terrible feeling, but mentally it can be equally draining and it can be equally difficult and makes us really struggle to appreciate anything else other than just getting better, feeling well, and getting back to our daily routine. But sometimes when we do become sick, it's very easy to just look towards the destination, right? Here we are today, not feeling well. What do I need to do to get well, right? We kind of treat it as, I need to get back to this. I need to get back on my feet. I need to feel well again. And of course, on the surface, there's nothing wrong with that. But we also have to be careful that we are using the time that we are feeling unwell to appreciate that, to honor it, to cherish it. And I know it sounds a little strange to say that you should honor your illness or honor your ailments, but if you think about it, that ailment or illness or whatever sort of thing that you're going through was put in your life for a reason, right? It's much deeper than, you were around someone that, was contagious and it happened to rub off you, and now you're carrying, the same illness. I believe it's really a test from God, and really a test to see how much we can not only dig through and persevere and take care of ourselves so that we can return back to a healthier state, but more importantly, to appreciate, every day, every minute, every second that we are healthy. If we're healthy 300 days of the year or 350 days of the year, but only 10 or 15 days we're not, well, that's a pretty worthwhile trade to me, right? That's something that I would be willing to take every single year, because more often than not, God is keeping me healthy than he is keeping me in recovery mode. So sometimes it's very easy to forget that, but I always try to, the minute I start feeling symptoms, whether it's, a sore throat, a runny nose, or something more serious than that, I know that I'm in for a fun few days or even a week sometimes. And, where I can, obviously, I'll try to, boost my immunity, or if I need to, take some medicine. But I also realize that I can't necessarily rush it, right? There is no cure. You can treat the symptoms, but you can't necessarily treat whatever it is that you're going through, and you kind of have to let it run its course. But as it's running its course, as you kind of go through the various stages and the highs and the lows, it's always so important to just be grateful and cherish it. Because even the sickness, even the ailment, even the difficulties, even the struggle have a beauty of their own. And in my case, for example, it's very common for me to sometimes have that go, go, go mindset, right? It's so easy to kind of get lost in that frenetic pace of life. There's so much to do from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed. And it's very easy sometimes to forget that, we need to slow down. We need to just kind of hit pause for a moment and kind of notice, become aware. Not do, but just become aware, more aware. Notice everything. Notice what's transpiring not only around us but within us. Being calm for a moment. And as I mentioned, that's sometimes very difficult, even for the best of us. So, what does sickness do? What does all of these ailments do? They kind of shut down the body. They help the body. Um, they help the body and the mind to kind of return to a very simple state. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not, performing, geometry or algebra in my head when I'm sick. I can sometimes barely even type an email. And that's by design, right? If you think about it, it's very similar to when you meditate and, the similar goal or the similar intention of trying to calm and still the mind. Well, meditation is usually a choice and sickness is usually not. But when it is there, you can treat it almost like a meditative state. You can treat it as a form of spirituality, as a form of returning back to the basics. How nice is it to actually enjoy and pay attention to drinking a glass of orange juice, feeling how that feels like, feeling how that actually restores you and nourishes you and provides you all the vitamins and minerals that can help you get back on your feet. Right? How amazing is it to just kind of lie down in bed and do nothing and not have the impulse of, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. Sickness is kind of like your teacher. It helps you do those things when you yourself sometimes struggle or forget or fail to do that. It is in its own way, life's natural way to kind of reset everything, to rebalance everything. And of course, as the expression goes, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. The same is true with our sicknesses, right? They develop and strengthen our immunity. That's another benefit of being sick, actually, is that it helps strengthen your immunity, right? You develop a certain kind of tolerance towards it. But it also shows how incredibly strong the human body and the human mind is. Often, what is sort of the lowest threshold or like the weakest link is our own thoughts. It's not our true strength, because in reality, our true strength is so much greater than even our thoughts can comprehend. And when we're in the process of not only becoming sick, but also recovering, we start to appreciate, we start to realize just how strong we are. In fact, I unfortunately had to experience my wife and my daughter and, my other family members as well, picking up the flu. And unfortunately, I didn't get it, but just seeing them and seeing them kind of struggle through it, how difficult it was, how it wasn't like a normal cold, how it wasn't even like what we saw, in these last couple of years, um, it just kind of made me, it reminded me of how serious these things can sometimes be. And of course, the flu, as some of us know, kills so many people every year. So many people, unfortunately, their bodies struggle to keep up, and it can be very difficult. But for those that do eventually overcome it, even though they've kind of hit those physical and mental and maybe even some spiritual lows, there's always that bounce back. There's always that resurgence. There's always that appreciation for coming out on the other side. Now, as is often the case, a week or two after we're healthy again, we kind of forget about that episode. But that's why I wanted to create this video, to kind of serve as this timeless reminder to always appreciate the moments that we are well and the moments that we are not so well. They both are needed in order for us to progress in life. Without one, you can't appreciate the other. And I've talked a lot, in previous videos about duality and how even though there is no such thing as duality, there is only oneness. Even despite that, our mind needs to perceive dualities in order to see the one. In other words, we can't see the one until we see the relation and, the interrelation between the two opposites. So, for example, if we were never sick a day in our life, we would never appreciate health. And so the two of those together, once we actually see that, we see that they're actually more related than they're not related. In actuality, they're not opposites. They're the yin and the yang. Both of them have a specific role to play. Both of them have a vital purpose. In fact, one of them is probably operating more noticeably than the other. So let me give you an example. When we are well and when we are healthy, we believe that is the natural state. We believe that that is how life should be. And that if we become sick, or that if we unfortunately start to die, that's a negative thing. That's a bad thing. That's the exception. That's not the rule. That's a consequence of getting older. That's a consequence of getting complications. We don't see that as the normal thing, right? No one ever panics when you feel well. No one ever gets worried. No one ever gets anxious. No one ever gets sad when you feel well. But everyone gets worked up when you start to show signs of being unwell, right? Because we view that as sort of the non-traditional, the non-normal way of living or the way of being. But think about it this way. The moment that you came into this earth, that is the only moment that you had the most life expectancy. Every other second after that, your body has literally been dying, right? And that's something that it took me a while to realize this, but it's made me really appreciate the fragility of life, the impermanence of life, but also the impermanence, or I'm sorry, the permanence of the spirit, the impermanence of life, but the permanence of spirit. This realization made me seek something that does not die. Because if you think about it, every day we are dying. Every second we are dying. And if we view this concept of dying as being ill or as being sick, well, then every second we are experiencing some form of a sickness. But of course, the only true sickness is in one's mind. There is no such thing as, bad health or good health. Similarly, when you see all these natural disasters, the common response, and this is obvious, the common response is to feel a great degree of pain and agony to see so much destruction, not only from a structural level, but from a societal level, from a personal level. So many people are affected, so many of their homes destroyed, so many of their lives destroyed, their communities destroyed, whether that's the wildfires, hurricanes, other natural disasters that take over, not only across this country, but across the entire globe. We see those as sort of negative things, but in reality, they all serve a purpose, right? I always use the analogy that if a wildfire didn't happen in a forest, then how are the young green shoots supposed to get the sunlight to grow? Right? It's from the ashes of that wildfire that the forest floor begins to grow again. Because all the big trees, they grow so large, they grow so vast and so wide that the canopy overpowers and overshadows all the young seedlings, all the young shoots, such that they're not able to receive the light and the nutrients to actually grow. And so what the wildfire does is it kind of clears everything away. It helps the new vegetation to grow, to have a platform. So, this is why it's so important to be able to perceive, not be stuck in the narratives, not be stuck in sort of the common way of thinking and perceiving things. One has to go a lot deeper than that. And of course, health and sickness is one facet of it, right? But there's so many other areas in life where we've been taught a certain way. We've grown up believing a certain way. But if we just examine it a little bit further, if we just sort of, going back to what I was saying earlier, kind of calm the mind, allow whatever awareness there is in that moment to arise, to sort of permeate, to instill some form of wisdom, something that perhaps we weren't thinking or imagining before, well, then we'll see life in a totally new way. We'll see it in a completely new way, a more beautiful way, a more holistic way, and a way that really fosters spiritual growth and development. I think that's really what spirituality is about, is getting to the truth of everything. You're not sick, you're just healing. You're not dying, you're just transcending. You're transforming. You're manifesting. So it's very careful that, it's very important that we use the right words, because what you say, what you think becomes reality. And that's why I always tell people that, including myself, when you do feel like you are experiencing a cold or a flu or anything, don't ever say, I'm sick or I'm unwell, because you're going to create that state within your own body. The body is fed not just through physical nutrition, but also mental and spiritual nutrition. What you tell yourself, what you believe, what you think on a daily and minute by minute basis, that's going to be what nourishes your body. That's what's going to be what strengthens you from the inside, what gives you that power, what gives you that divinity within, right? Because ultimately it is God healing. It's not us. It's not the human. It's not the self. It's not the ego. It's ultimately God. And so how does one ultimately connect with God on that level, on that subsurface level, on that deep sort of visceral level? How does one ultimately become one with God? Well, one of the ways that we can do that is being more careful with our words, changing our perception, seeing the body as ultimately a vessel, but what houses the body being even more precious than that. And if we can connect with that root, if we can connect with that soul, with that spirit, well, then we are already whole to begin with. If you kind of go back to the etymology of words, the word health has a very common and similar root as the word whole, to be holy, right? To be complete. And so health is much more than just fighting off the cold or fighting off the sickness. It's about becoming whole. Becoming whole not just physically, but becoming whole mentally, becoming whole spiritually. Not sort of dividing ourselves up into little fragments of the self, fragments of the little I, right? The ego. Hopefully, if you do become sick, when you do become sick, when you do experience some sort of an ailment that puts you through the ringer, hopefully you recognize that you are much greater than just these physical parameters, that you are something so much more. And that's why I appreciate sickness and feeling sick so much, because again, going back to what I was saying earlier, it's kind of like a forced meditation. It's kind of like life's way of manually pressing the pause button and even the reset button. But it's up to you to decide how you will ultimately treat and honor that experience. Will you treat it with annoyance, with frustration, with blame, with guilt, with sadness, with this impatience to just kind of get it done with and get back to your normal life, a life that doesn't pay attention to what really matters? Or do you do what so few people do, but what is actually the best way to become whole, not just in this moment, but throughout your entire life as well? And that's, of course, honoring that experience, listening to your body, listening to your soul, using that beautiful opportunity that doesn't come all the time, right? Hopefully you're not in a position where you're sick all the time. Hopefully it's something that happens once a year, or, I know some folks that, don't get sick very often, once every few years, right? So it's even once a year is a lot for them. Hopefully, you're not having to kind of battle those difficulties, but if you are, treat that as a wonderful opportunity to get even closer to God, to get even closer to your own soul. Because I promise you, if you do that, it will do wonders for your spiritual development. You will be able to transcend what is a difficult experience. You will be able to transmute it, actually, from one that is intended to bring suffering, but one that is actually bringing enlightenment, from one that is actually bringing wisdom. This is the hallmark of someone who truly masters their craft, someone who truly masters their body, masters their mind, and develops that awareness that is critical in all facets of life, not just in feeling good, not just in developing the tools, the mental fortitude to get through a sickness, but to get through life itself. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it shed some light on some of the beauties, some of the hidden truths and gems of being sick. And hopefully this serves as a practical reminder. As I mentioned, if you are sick, if you have been sick, if you become sick, I hope you guys use this video as sort of a natural inspiration to just remember why you're sick in the first place. Remember what power you have to change this experience, because your perception is everything, right? There is no cloudy day. There is no rainy day. The sun is always shining. It's just sometimes hidden. Some days we need to look a little bit harder. And sickness is the same thing. Life is still beautiful whether you're healthy or you're sick. But when you're sick or when you're experiencing some sort of an ailment, you just have to look a little bit harder. And in my view, when you have to work a little bit harder for something, the reward is all that much more sweeter. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please don't hesitate to drop a like. And also check out some of the other videos on this channel. I talk a lot, I reference a lot of some of these other videos and topics that I addressed in the past. And I always try to kind of deliver new content every week, things that are relevant, but things that are also practical as well. So if you've been following the channel for a while, you'll notice that my spiritual content has kind of naturally evolved and developed from some of the more mystical and abstract discussions to things that are perhaps a little bit more relevant to our day to day life. But regardless of what you're looking for, regardless of where you are in your spiritual journey, I'm sure there's a video or two that will resonate, that will help you in that regard. And if there's not, I would love to hear your thoughts on, what you think I should be focusing on next. That's certainly something that, always keeps me interested. Usually I don't really think about the topics much in advance. It's mostly a reflection of what's going on in that moment or what sort of, insight or inspiration I get. But in any event, I know this video has been running a little bit longer. I hope you guys have a wonderful week ahead, and I hope that you stay healthy and that you always remember that you are whole, you are complete, you are holy.